All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about some of the injuries around the NFL, guys that maybe might not be on track to play in Week 1. So I just wanted to talk about that. So obviously Nick Chubb, who I brought up before, we went to break. He's definitely one of those guys that could be out Week 1 and maybe not back, till maybe the third or fourth week possibly. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that. But he's, of course, recovering from the knee injury that he suffered last year, the horrific knee injury. And right now he is on the PUP list. There's no timeline for his return. He could end up missing at least the first 4 games of the season if he's not activated by the start of the season. So, and I know that's probably the same thing with Jonathan Brooks, another player that I've talked about. He's recovering from a torn ACL, the young running back for the Panthers. He's targeting a return within the first month of the season, but yeah, he's likely to miss the first 4 games if he's not activated. So a couple of running backs there. For the Browns, they still have Jerome Ford. Deontay Foreman returned to practice after his scary injury. So those guys are going to have to, pick up the slack for Chubb if he's out. And Jerome Ford did a nice job last year filling in for Chubb. And then for the Panthers, you got Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders to take on the workload. If Jonathan Brooks is not back, for the start of the season. So, I can't wait to see, Nick Chubb back on the field, and I hope he really bounces back because I do like him as a player. And that was just such a horrific injury that happened last year. And he's a guy that, during, his time in the NFL has stayed relatively healthy. Has missed some games, but nothing major like what he suffered back in Week 2 last year. And I know he had an injury in college, which was significant. But in the NFL, he's been able to stay healthy for the most part up until last year. So I can't wait to see him back on the field. Also, DeAndre Hopkins. He may at least miss Week 1. We'll see if he ends up getting put on the PUP list. But yeah, he's gonna miss. He may miss Week 1. But yeah, this injury. The timeline for him is 4 to 6 weeks. Josh Downs of the Colts going into his second year, so he suffered a high ankle sprain. He's targeting a return in the first month of the season, but he's likely to miss Week 1. They gave Michael Pittman, the Colts, a big contract. They also drafted another receiver as well. Colts got a young team, and that's a team that I'm excited to see what they could do, especially with Anthony Richardson coming back healthy. T.J.Hockenson, got hurt late in the year last year, torn ACL and MCL. No timeline for his return, remains on the PUP list, and may not be ready for the season opener. And we'll have to keep an eye on that. As well as Tyler Higbee, another tight end for the Rams. He got hurt late in the season. Same thing, torn ACL and MCL. No timeline for him. May struggle to be ready for the start of the season. So, for the Vikings, I think it's more significant because Tyler Higbee is a solid tight end, but the Rams they got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams coming out of the backfield, and you got Matthew Stafford, who's an experienced quarterback. But for the Vikings, you got Sam Darnold, and if J.J. McCarthy eventually takes over, you want to have Hockenson out there, one of the experienced guys, to help the young guy along. Now, of course, they still got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, but the quarterback situations are a little different with those two teams. And T.J. Hockenson is more of a significant piece in that offense as opposed to Tyler Higbee. But you want to have both of those guys out there. For the Dolphins, they're waiting on Bradley Chubb to recover from his injury, as well as Jalen Phillips. They both suffered injuries. Bradley Chubb had the ACL tear. No timeline for his return, as well as for Jalen Phillips as well, because I believe he tore his Achilles against the Jets last year in the Black Friday matchup. But yeah, those are significant pieces on the defensive side of the ball. And the Dolphins, their defense has gone through changes, so they're hoping to get those guys back soon. And the 49ers got a couple of players themselves. Dre Greenlaw is going to miss part of the season, with his Achilles tear that he suffered in the Super Bowl. And then you also have Ufanga, Talanoa Ufanga. I hope I pronounced his first name. I can pronounce his last name. It's his first name because anytime I hear him make a play, you always hear Ufanga, his last name. But yeah, he's still recovering from his ACL injury from last year. A significant piece on the defensive side of the ball as well. He's likely to miss the start of the season. So yeah, those are two key pieces on the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers. And Dre Greenlaw got hurt in the Super Bowl, and the 49ers defense still played well, up until we got to the end of the game, the fourth quarter and overtime. But that's also, I think, because, fatigue. But now, how are they going to be without Dre Greenlaw for an extended period of time? How is that defense going to look without him being there? Because he's a significant piece on that defense, besides Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. And Ufanga's a good player, too. But they were able to, still play well, despite that. But the secondary is that part of the defense that I do worry about with the Niners. Also, the running game was a problem too in the playoffs. Aaron Jones had a big game. The Lions running backs had good games as well. They did get their act together in the Super Bowl because Isaiah Pacheco really didn't have an impact, but. Those are, like I said, those are key guys on the defense. All the guys that are on this list are key players, and it's most likely that a lot of these guys are not going to play at the start of the season. It's really just now, when are they going to come back? And I think. For the 49ers, those players are significant. The Dolphins players are significant. Both those all those guys are on the defensive side of the ball. Like I said, Tyler Higbee being out does hurt the Rams, but I don't think it's going to, prevent them from being a top offense in the league because of the other guys that they got. Cooper Kupp is healthy. I know Puka Nacua got banged up, but that's something that shouldn't be too much of a concern. I think the T.J.Hockenson injury, going into the year, if he doesn't start the year, that's going to hurt the Vikings a little bit. But look, at the end of the day, injuries just there's so many injuries though. It's just it's already starting. But these are from the previous season, but still, but even now, guys are getting hurt. I talked about the Cowboys lineman that's out for the year. It's just, it's not going to end. Injuries are just going to keep on impacting the game, which is just unfortunate, but it is what it is. So there's nothing we really can do about it, but. Let's just hope that we don't have as much quarterback injuries like we did last year. I know Justin Herbert's banged up. Russell Wilson was dealing with a calf injury. But, the amount of backup quarterbacks that played last year, that was unbelievable. So, let's just hope that we avoid that this year. So, but, there's some big names on that list, though, of guys that might not be ready for the start of the season. With DeAndre Hopkins, you want to see him out there because, you brought in Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd, to help out Will Levis. But DeAndre Hopkins is one of the receivers that, already has chemistry with Will Levis. So now he's out, and now you're trying to, work on things with the new receivers. And I saw that Will Levis and Calvin Ridley are struggling to kind of get on the same page on deep throws. So we'll see if they're able to get on the same page once we get to the regular season. But I mean that's pretty much it when talking about the injuries. Again, these are guys recovering from injuries from last year, so we'll see when they eventually do play. But yeah, some big names on that list. So yeah, before we go to break, well, when we come back from our final break, we will talk about the rankings of the receivers in the NFC South, and I also will, towards the end of the show, talk about some comments on some of my videos from some of the segments from yesterday. I want to get into that. I'm going to try to do those, towards the end of the show. If there's any comments that I want to get to, I will talk about it, because there were comments about, the Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs stuff, as well as my receiver rankings for the NFC North. So I wanted to get into those and talk about them before the end of the show. Sorry, holding back a sneeze. It always happens. It always happens. But yeah. So that is what that's what I'm gonna do when we come back. Of course, I'll rank the receivers, but I also wanted to get into some of the other comments. Well, some of the comments that were made on certain segments from previous shows. So for one final time today, like I said, we'll come back. We'll rank the receivers from the NFC South. So one final time today. Stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.